Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Sarah and I'm not alone today. Alex is here with me, as always.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be back. Today's episode is going to be a thoughtful one.
Yes, definitely. Today we're talking about a word that sounds simple, but is actually very complex. The word is accountability.
It's one of those words we hear all the time, especially in school, at work, and in the news. But many people aren't completely sure what it really means.
Exactly. So let's slow down, take our time, and explore this word properly, not just its definition, but what it looks like in real life.
At its core, accountability means accepting responsibility for your actions, decisions, and their outcomes. It's not only about doing something, but also about being willing to explain it, stand behind it, and face the consequences if things go wrong. Many learners confuse accountability with responsibility. While they are related, they are not exactly the same. Responsibility is often about duties, what you are expected to do. Accountability goes one step further. It asks, are you willing to own the results of what you did, even when it's uncomfortable? Accountability involves honesty, self-awareness, and maturity. It means not hiding behind excuses, not blaming others automatically, and not pretending mistakes didn't happen.
In everyday life, accountability appears in small but powerful moments. For example, imagine missing an important deadline. A lack of accountability sounds like, I didn't get clear instructions. Everyone was late, not just me. There were too many things happening. Accountability sounds different. I missed the deadline. I should have planned better. I'll fix it. The second response doesn't mean the person is weak or incompetent. In fact, it often creates trust. People feel safer working with someone who can admit mistakes and take ownership. This is an important lesson for English learners. Accountability is not just a behavior, it's also something we express through language. The words we choose show whether we are avoiding responsibility or accepting it.
One reason accountability is difficult is because it directly touches our ego. For many people, admitting a mistake feels dangerously close to admitting failure or weakness. From an early age, we are often taught that being wrong is something to hide, not something to examine. In schools, mistakes may be corrected publicly. In workplaces, errors can lead to criticism or loss of trust. Over time, this creates a fear of being exposed rather than a habit of learning. Because of this fear, people often protect themselves by shifting blame. They focus on external factors, unclear instructions, difficult circumstances, or other people's actions. This reaction is deeply human. It is a defense mechanism meant to protect self-esteem. However, while it may reduce discomfort in the moment, it also prevents growth. When we avoid accountability, we lose the opportunity to reflect, adjust, and improve. True accountability requires emotional strength. It asks us to look at our actions honestly and say, I could have done better, without collapsing into shame or self-criticism. This is a delicate balance. On one side is denial, on the other is self-punishment. Accountability exists in the middle. It allows us to accept responsibility while still recognizing our value as learners and evolving individuals. This is why accountability is closely connected to personal development. Growth does not come from being perfect. It comes from being aware. When people take accountability, they turn mistakes into information rather than evidence of failure. They begin to see challenges as part of progress, not proof of inadequacy. In English, you will often see accountability linked with words such as growth, learning, reflection, and self-improvement. These connections are not accidental. In academic and professional contexts, accountability is understood as a sign of maturity, reliability, and critical thinking. When you use this word with these ideas in mind, your English immediately sounds more thoughtful, precise, and advanced.
In education, accountability applies to both students and institutions, and this balance is essential for any learning system to function well. Education is not a one-sided process. It is a relationship that depends on responsibility, trust, and clear expectations from everyone involved. Students are expected to take accountability for their own learning. This includes attending classes consistently, completing assignments on time, preparing for exams, and actively engaging with course material. But deeper than that, student accountability also means recognizing when help is needed, asking questions, and reflecting honestly on one's own effort and progress. Learning becomes far more effective when students see themselves as active participants rather than passive receivers of information. At the same time, schools and universities are also expected to be accountable. Educational institutions carry responsibility for providing fair assessments, clear grading criteria, and transparent academic policies. They are expected to offer supportive learning environments, access to resources, and guidance that allows students from different backgrounds to succeed. When institutions fail to meet these responsibilities, even the most motivated students may struggle. When accountability exists on both sides, education becomes more meaningful and more equitable. Students feel respected and supported, and institutions maintain credibility and trust. When accountability is missing, frustration grows. Students may feel confused, treated unfairly, or disconnected from the learning process. Institutions, in turn, may face criticism, disengagement, or declining academic standards. In academic English, the word accountability often appears in formal, analytical discussions about education systems, policy, and quality assurance. You may encounter sentences such as, "Academic accountability ensures fairness and quality in education." Students are encouraged to take accountability for their learning outcomes. These sentences focus on structure, responsibility, and long-term impact rather than emotion. This is typical of academic writing, where ideas are presented logically and objectively. Understanding how accountability functions in this type of language helps learners express complex ideas clearly and confidently. It allows students to participate in academic discussions, write stronger essays, and engage critically with educational topics. More importantly, it shows that you understand accountability not just as a word, but as a principle that shapes learning itself.
In professional environments, accountability is often described as a core value, not just a personal trait. Organizations that function well usually place accountability at the center of their culture. It shapes how people communicate, collaborate, and respond to challenges. Without accountability, even highly skilled teams struggle to work effectively. Accountable professionals communicate clearly and honestly. They set realistic expectations, follow through on commitments, and speak up when something is unclear or going wrong. Most importantly, they do not disappear when problems arise. Instead of avoiding responsibility, they remain present, acknowledge the issue, and actively participate in finding solutions. This behavior builds credibility and long-term trust. In contrast, a lack of accountability often leads to confusion and frustration. Deadlines are missed without explanation, mistakes are repeated, and responsibility becomes unclear. Over time, this damages teamwork and lowers morale. That is why accountability is not only about individual behavior, but about creating systems where responsibility is shared and transparent. In professional English, accountability frequently appears in discussions about leadership, management, and organizational culture. You may hear phrases such as accountability improves team performance. Leaders must be held accountable for their decisions. A culture of accountability builds trust. These sentences reflect how accountability is viewed as essential for effective leadership and sustainable success. Notice that the language is formal and precise. It focuses on outcomes, responsibility, and trust rather than personal emotion. Using the word accountability correctly in professional contexts signals more than vocabulary knowledge. It shows that you understand workplace values such as reliability, transparency, and ethical leadership. When English learners can use this word naturally in meetings, presentations, or written communication, their language immediately sounds more mature, thoughtful, and professional.
This is a very important distinction, and misunderstanding it often leads to confusion in both language and real-life communication. Accountability is not the same as blame. Blame focuses on punishment, fault, and personal failure. It looks backward and asks, who is responsible for this mistake? The goal of blame is often to assign guilt, protect authority, or release frustration. In environments dominated by blame, people become defensive. They hide errors, avoid responsibility, and focus more on self-protection than improvement. Accountability, on the other hand, focuses on learning and responsibility. It acknowledges that a mistake happened, but it does not stop there. Instead, it asks constructive questions. What went wrong? Why did it happen? What can we do differently next time? Accountability is not about making someone feel ashamed. It is about understanding cause and effect and taking ownership of improvement. In healthy environments, whether in schools, workplaces, or families, accountability is forward-looking. The central question is not who should suffer, but what can we learn and how can we improve? This shift in perspective changes everything. People feel safer admitting mistakes, communication becomes more honest, and growth becomes possible. For English learners, this distinction is especially important. In discussions, essays, and interviews, using the word accountability incorrectly can change the meaning of your message. When you show that you understand accountability as a constructive, learning-oriented concept, your English immediately sounds more precise and mature. Using accountability with this deeper understanding adds clarity, professionalism, and depth to your communication. It shows that you are not only using advanced vocabulary, but also expressing complex ideas thoughtfully and accurately, a key skill at higher levels of English proficiency.
Many people discover the true importance of accountability not through theory, but through difficult personal experiences. It often appears in moments of conflict, failure, or disappointment, moments when something has gone wrong and a response is required. These situations test how we handle responsibility when the outcome is not ideal. In such moments, avoiding responsibility can feel easier in the short term. Making excuses, shifting blame, or remaining silent may temporarily reduce discomfort. However, this avoidance usually causes long-term damage. Relationships weaken when trust is broken. Confidence declines when problems are left unresolved. Over time, people may begin to feel disconnected from their own values, even if they are not fully aware of it. Accountability, by contrast, may feel uncomfortable at first, but it often brings clarity and respect. When someone acknowledges their role in a situation and speaks honestly about it, tension decreases. Others may not always agree, but they usually recognize sincerity. Accountability creates space for dialogue, repair, and growth. Taking accountability does not mean being perfect or never making mistakes. It means being honest about limitations, choices, and outcomes. It is the willingness to say, this is what happened, and this is what I can do differently. That kind of honesty strengthens communication and builds credibility over time. In any language, honesty is one of the most powerful forms of communication. In English, expressing accountability clearly and thoughtfully shows emotional intelligence as well as linguistic competence. It allows learners to connect with others not just through correct grammar, but through authenticity and trust qualities that matter far beyond vocabulary alone.
Now, pause for a moment and give yourself some time to actively work with this word. Instead of only listening, try to bring accountability into your own thinking and experience. Complete these sentences in your own words. Accountability means, I showed accountability when. Accountability is important because there are no perfect answers here. You are not being tested. What matters most is clarity and sincerity. Saying what you truly mean, even if the language is simple. This kind of practice helps you move vocabulary from passive understanding to active use. When you can connect a word to your own experiences, it stops being abstract. It becomes personal. And once a word becomes personal, it becomes easier to remember, easier to use, and easier to recognize in real conversations, academic writing, and professional situations. This is how vocabulary becomes part of your thinking, not just something you recognize on a page. It becomes a tool you can use to explain ideas, reflect on experiences, and communicate more confidently in English.
I think what stands out to me is that accountability isn't about being harsh on yourself. It's about being real.
I agree. And when you understand that, the word stops feeling heavy and starts feeling empowering.
Exactly. It's not about fear, it's about growth.
And that's why accountability is such an important word to understand, not just in English, but in life.
Take a moment to reflect on how you use it in language and in daily situations. Thank you for listening and for choosing to learn thoughtfully and seriously with us. We'll see you in the next episode.